Late Night
on WEEI. WEEI.
Save us as a favorite on the Odyssey app and take Boston Sports Original everywhere you go.
And championship experiences that the current one does.
Yeah, WEEI Late Night. Thank you so much for hanging out. It's KJ 617-779-7937. The text line is 37937. We're talking about Patriots and the NFL here. That's Phil Perry saying, like, look, what does the leadership look like moving forward if you know that some of your older guys are starting to move on? So you say, okay, Matthew Judon would be one of those defensive leaders. And you start like, J.C. Jackson going to be here? Is he? I mean, because that's I don't want to say it's the $64,000 question. It's like more like the $18 to $20 million question. But if you know that you're going to get younger, either you have in mind of some other veteran leadership you're going to bring in, and I would argue, like, if you need linebackers, you would probably want to go younger than older. And then you've kind of got this malaise going on of who's in charge of the deep, like who is the defensive coordinator? Is that kind of also like a mini committee? I think we all know it's really Steve Belichick, probably at the top of that pecking order. So, like, that's going to be the leader of the defense, and that person's going to be developing, I guess, this new identity. When do we start the change.org petition for, Bill, get away from the offense because now it looks like the defense is starting to get out of hand? Just sign your name here. All we're just asking Belichick to do is just, still oversee the defense and not be the offensive coordinator. Because if the defense goes awry, I mean, you literally will have, I don't know if you've ever seen the picture, with like a person's in a kitchen and they're reaching for the stove and a baby's crying over here and they got the phone on their shoulder. It feels like that. Suddenly. With no real plan in sight. That at least has been exposed to us. I mean, but who are us, right? So obviously a lot of talk is also of what's going to happen on the offensive side of the football. We saw what Calvin Ridley did. So there goes that trade bait. And then now there's talk of maybe making a move for Allen Robinson, which is really, really dangerous. You wonder about guys who ramp it up going into their franchise tag. Like he had 118 receptions the season going into the year where they decide to franchise tag him. And then comes back the next year with 38 catches. Is that pouting? Because you might say, well, he had horrible quarterbacks. Well, I mean, I'll get to Robbie Anderson in a second, but was Cam Newton throwing him the ball? Which most people would say that would be the worst case scenario for a receiver in the NFL. So you wonder, is Allen Robinson motivated because things didn't work out last year? Is Bill motivated because now he knows Allen Robinson can't ask for the price that he thought he was going to get in the open market after being franchise tagged? He's not going to get 18. He may want it, and he might get it from some other places. I think Allen Robinson is more likely to go somewhere where they're going to pay him because he figures well, look, I know what it's like to get paid pretty decent on a bad team. So if I go to a little bit better team, I can get a lot more money. So you're Belichick, you're do you overpay for him and not know if he's ready to be on the stage? Because this is no game in the AFC now. And I said, and I'll tell you here in a few minutes how it might get progressively worse for the Patriots outlook. Bump Mac Jones is hey, the defense is going to have problems with some of these teams. But the name Robbie Anderson popped up. Here's Tommy Curran talking about his thoughts on Robbie Anderson.
I like Robbie Anderson. And when you look at the comp between Teddy Bridgewater and Mac Jones, accurate, smart, quarterback who can deliver the ball on time, I can see why the Patriots would be intrigued by Robbie Anderson. He is not, and that's the interesting one other point I'm going to make, Phil. When you look at Nelson Agholor, I've talked to people within the team, the Patriots team, and asked about Robbie Anderson. They compared him to Nelson Agholor. I think most people look at him as being similar to Nelson Agholor. Agholor, Anderson has been a 15 yards per reception guy, except the last 2 years. Agholor is the same. But I kind of feel like Robbie Anderson is just a tick different. Even though they're built similarly, he can work underneath and be a little bit tougher with the ball.
No, it's actually worse. It's actually worse. So Agholor and Robbie Anderson are the same age. Agholor only caught 57.8% of his targets last season. You ready for Robbie Anderson's number? 48.2. Well, he was getting balls from Cam Newton. Well, so was DJ Moore, and DJ Moore had 93 receptions and had a catch percentage of 57%. So, hey, while we can agree that they had a bad quarterback, hey, DJ Moore did better with the bad quarterback than Robbie Anderson did. And worse than Nelson Agholor. It gets worse. Even though Robbie Anderson had 110 targets and Nelson Agholor had only 64 in comparison, Nelson Agholor was within 50 yards, total yards for the season. Catch, receiving. And Robbie Anderson played in all 17 games. Agholor played in 15. So Agholor in 2 less games had only 50 less receiving yards and 50 less targets than Robbie Anderson last year. Tom Curran just said, yeah, over the last 2 years, you know what that's called? A trend. That Robbie Anderson's been off. Yeah. He's been off all right. We could even ignore the 16 mil that he got. Reception yards, Agholor last year, 12.8. You're like, really? Robbie Anderson, 9.8. Really? This is what we're doing? This is how bad Robbie Anderson is. He has the second worst catch rate in the league last year. Only Marquez Valdez-Scantling was worse. But his quarterback was Aaron Rodgers. So there's your theory. You can have a great quarterback and still miss catching the ball, and you can have a bad quarterback and still miss catching the ball. In that list as well, Chase Claypool, 21st worst in target in catching his balls. Agholor, 28th. DK Metcalf, 32. AJ Green, 36. Jacoby Myers, 92. Put that in perspective. If you're saying, hey, we want Robbie Anderson to be the number one, Kendrick Bourne has a 78% catch rate. Help me figure it out. Why Robbie Anderson is so great, because of something we saw a couple of years ago. You just heard me talk about Allen Robinson. He was supposed to be a max guy. So this is the new thing, bring him in on the cheap. Then I heard, Belichick is interested in bringing Bobby Wagner as a coach. Because again, if you're trying to get younger, I understand the old theory of how the game used to be when you could bring in a junior Seau in advanced years. But again, that's when a lot of people ran the ball primarily in the league. This is a much faster game, but Belichick likes him. Here's his desire. Well, here's his like for Bobby Wagner. Here's Belichick.
Yeah, Bobby's he's a great football player. Super productive. He's got a great nose for the ball, very instinctive, runs well, anticipates plays well. I mean, there's just no price you can put on that. Just knowing what's going to happen or being able to anticipate what's going to happen and then being able to, to get there and, make the play when right in the middle and, you're a bullseye for somebody on every play. There's no plays where you're not blocking 54. I mean, you're accounting for him on everything, and still he continues to, have, tremendous production in the running game, the passing game. He's a good blitzer. He's exceptional.
Yeah. What you've seen on tape, but it's a year later. And again, a couple nights ago, I mentioned that the Patriots defense, when it comes to the averages of the ages, 6 months older on defensive line, and I would say Christian Barmore and Godchow are on the younger end. So those guys are not up there in age. So they're not much older against the norm or the par, if you will. 8 months when you start getting into linebackers above the average. A year and a half when you get to the cornerbacks. 3.5 years older than the average safety core in the league. And I understand the thought process of Bobby Wagner, but I would say, yeah, you consider Bobby Wagner if you feel like this team is a game or two away from getting to the Super Bowl. That's not this team. It's not. Like, this team may go 7-10 this year. I hope not. But hey, with Aaron Rodgers coming back, well, that's now a loss at Green Bay, most likely. I know it's the schedule and anything could happen. But just the same way that I was realistic saying, hey, the ultimate story with the Patriots last year would have been like, if that rookie could take them 10-7, that would be a great story. And it was. Second albums aren't usually the good albums from artists. Oh, man, that first album, it had all the hits on it. What about the second one? Not as good. I don't think it'll be disastrous, but it won't be pretty. And I don't know if Bobby Wagner is a fit for something like that. 617-779-7937. Text line is 37937. It's KJ Late Night. All right, we're like 12 minutes away from announcing the winner of tonight's matchup in Wrestle Madness between CM Punk, the 1 seed, against the 4 seed. The American Dream doth their roads. Justin, it's pretty close. I'm shocked.
It is marginal difference right now. It is close.
I'm kind of shocked. So, again, when it comes to the Patriots and moving forward, and as you've heard, like, what does the new leadership look like on defense? You're thinking about going after Robbie Anderson to help out your second-year quarterback. Free agent receivers are starting to disappear slowly off the. There's still some free agent receivers out there that could still be good pieces. But it feels like a gut punch happened with Calvin Ridley, Mike Williams re-signing with the Chargers, and with J.C. Jackson, to be honest with you, the way the Chargers are spending and them just getting Khalil Mack, I would not be surprised, especially now that Russell Wilson is in the AFC West, that J.C. Jackson does not get a sweet offer to be the other corner in San Diego. All right, 617-779-7937. Let's go to Mike in Maine talking about the Patriots. Mike, go ahead.
Hey, I was just wondering, it just feels like we're searching for a Jabbar Gaffney type of receiver here when we're talking about Robbie Anderson. And I don't know if there's that type of receiver out there anymore, to tell you the truth, not without some top-flight receivers to support somebody like a Robbie Anderson. I like Robbie Anderson, believe me, in fantasy. I love him. But, you know, he's a support cast member. He's not a true number one.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, are we going to have Robbie Anderson in camp and him lose out to Nelson Agholor?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, It's a toss-up. I hate the toss-ups, and I just want something to be definite. You know, let's just go with definite. How about that?
I like that. Mike, stay warm tonight, man. Thanks for the call. Mike in Maine. Yeah, it's kind of disheartening because you're like, okay, if you know that you have a very good quarterback who's got exceptional acumen, takes care of the ball pretty well, is only going to get better, and you're not paying him a lot of money, why not start to spend money on real assets? I'm not saying DK Metcalf, I think Seattle's going to kind of hold him hostage. Like, look, we got you for cheap. We're going to keep you for cheap. You know, unless someone comes to us with just an incredible offer that absolutely blows us away, then yeah, because I don't think he's going to re-sign in Seattle. But I'm sure probably one of the premises of, you know, that deal getting done is he probably wants that contract torn up now and get the new deal done. So, you know, or he will, you know, or go and walk. So that's the chance you take with someone like a DK Metcalf. But if you've got someone like a Juju Smith-Schuster out there, and maybe Robbie Anderson is the teaser name that you put out there, so that way you really don't know what your intentions are, or to let them know what you're trying to do. Because you have a league full of teams and owners and clubs who are just kind of like, anything that might get the Patriots back on the map again in any way, shape, or form, we don't want that at all. And so where there are places there are uncertainty, like, for example, like I thought the Colts game would be a loss this season, but now them not having a quarterback. And if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm smiling from ear to ear, because now San Francisco probably needs him now more than ever, unless you have like guaranteed promises from Tom Brady himself, like signed in blood, and, Tampa just says, okay, fine, you go. But who would have ever thought Jimmy G is like, he's like Carrie in the movie Carrie, if you've ever seen either the original or the last one. Like, yeah, they all make fun of him. We say this, we say that, we make the jokes, but at the end of the day, he's the one making the blood come down off the walls. Yeah, what's San Francisco going to do now if Jimmy G goes? Like, get ready for well, I mean, what are they going to do now? Get ready for the backup, who seems nowhere near ready, Trey Lance. He's not ready. Yeah, he's not ready. Here's something interesting about Deshaun Watson, and the news kind of hits tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a big day in sports. Watch. Here's Ian Rappaport talking about Deshaun Watson and his case.
So many people have been waiting for clarity on the Deshaun Watson legal situation and his eventual destination, which team of the Houston Texans going to trade him to. All of that is coming. First, the legal part of this, as colleague Tom Pelissero mentioned earlier, the district attorney investigating Deshaun Watson plans to present her case to the grand jury on Friday. Several women who filed criminal complaints against Deshaun Watson are expected to testify. Now, this is the same day that Watson has his civil deposition, so expect him to plead the fifth. So what he says essentially in the civil lawsuit cannot be used against him in the.
Yeah, so an interesting tweet went out by Sean King, the former NFL quarterback, on yesterday. Now, even though the Steelers said they have no interest in Deshaun Watson, my thing to that is they have to say that. They have to say that. I went to high school with Christian Peter. Those are some of the most memorable quotes by Bill Parcells over my old high school classmate. When people know what you've done or have been accused of doing, they will come out of the woodworks. They're not going to show their hand. But Sean King, the former quarterback, says, look, he said, assuming that Deshaun Watson's legal situation clears up, Deshaun Watson is on his way to Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think so too. KJ Late Night here on WEEI next. We'll take your calls. We'll wrap up the show, and we'll get you the final results of tonight's battle of Wrestle Madness between CM Punk and Dusty Rhodes next on WEEI.